A very warm good evening. I hope all of you are excited for this session. So, welcome to 7 Day 7 webinar on wildlife on the occasion of Wildlife Week 2024, organized by ghanaashini Nature Foundation. So, today's webinar entitled on whales, dolphins, and humans navigating India's marine mammal seascape. So, which will be handled by Imran Samad. So Imran Samad is a PhD scholar at the Center for Ecological Sciences, IISc Bangalore, where he studies the ecology of cetaceans, that is nothing but dolphins and whales, and their interactions with the human beings. So he studies how and when do humpback dolphins interact with fishing and tourist vessels, and what does it mean for their survival. So it would be a great session. So I request Mr. Imran Samad to take over the session.
Thank you very much for that introduction. So I'd like to begin by thanking ghanaashini Nature Foundation to give me this opportunity to speak to a lot of people about something that I really love, which are whales and dolphins. And right now, as I see in the chat, there are about 180, 190 people and counting. So that's really, really great. I haven't spoken to such big an audience ever before this. So coming to the talk, the webinar is supposed to be an hour long, but my talk is not going to be that much. It's more or less about 30 minutes or something. And I made it like that because I'd like to spend more time talking to people and answering questions and understanding what everyone else is than just talking about what I do. So my talk is structured in two different blocks, where in the first half of the talk, I'm going to talk about dolphins, whales, and their interaction with humans in general. Zooming in from what dolphins are to what dolphins are found in India, and what kind of basic research is happening, who's doing all that. And the second half of the talk is about my own research, what I do at the Center for Ecological Sciences in IISc as a PhD scholar. So with that introduction, let's begin in. So are my slides visible? Has the slide changed?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. 1 second. Yeah, okay. So I'll start by just highlighting the importance of ocean that is there for life. Oceans cover about 70% of the surface of the earth, as we all know, and have been learning since a very young age. But very few people know that almost 90% of all the life that's on earth is in the ocean. That ranges from small bacteria to large whales and predators like orcas. Same time, the ocean also regulates climate by by regulating the carbon cycle, by regulating how much carbon there is in the atmosphere, and therefore controlling temperature. And which means that oceans are really important to distribute heat across the entire globe, and also when we are talking about climate change and other things, right? But all that keeping aside, if we just neglect the importance of oceans, that always comes to our mind when we think of these vast spaces is that oceans are fascinating, right? You can think of this endless expanse of water where there are things lurking underneath the water and you don't know what's happening, but it's so vast and endless that it just triggers your imagination in a lot of different directions. And one of that emotions is the feeling of being anxious or scared about it. And that reflects in how we perceive and talk about the oceans. So we have talked about the oceans. We've written books about it. We have made movies about it, about exploring those emotions that lie underneath. What about all the scary things that might be under the water? That the feeling of being helpless against all these things, or the feeling of not knowing what's immediately underneath your feet, right? But at the same time, oceans have also inspired our culture as a species itself, like not just in India, but you pick up any coastal town, any island town throughout the world, you'll see that there are some element of all the charismatic and large species that are found in the oceans. That ranges from the Hindu culture to Japanese to Greek and Romans and the constellations that they made up. So oceans play an important role on Earth, for Earth, but also an important role in our culture, right? And when you look into the ocean, you find this massive diversity of life forms that ranges from corals to tiny fish to plankton to algae to turtles and everything. And all of these are very well adapted to living in the ocean, right? But at the same time, there's also something very strange that lives in there. Something that when you look at it or when you hear about it for the first time, you think that it's a story made up by someone. So I'm talking about marine mammals in general. So mammals share some common characteristics. Like for example, we are all warm-blooded. Now, if a warm-blooded animal has to live in a cold ocean, the average temperature of which is less than 7 degrees, then how do you survive? How much energy do you need? The amount of energy you need to only keep breathing and keep living is so massive compared to what we need on Earth. Then mammals, we also breathe air. We don't take in water and extract oxygen from it. So marine mammals, they breathe air and then but they live in the ocean underwater, right? At the same time, they also produce young ones in the ocean itself. So they have to mate in the ocean. And when the young ones are produced, when the babies are produced, they also have to feed those babies milk when they are young in the ocean. So how are all these challenges navigated by these unique set of species? This is not to say that the marine mammals are not adapted to the ocean, but they are odd compared to the other life forms that we generally see there. And why is that so? To understand that, we must go back about 100 million years or so. So we've all seen Jurassic Park, and this is a dinosaur that we were fascinated to see in the movie. Um, and to understand where and why whales came from, we need to understand a little bit about dinosaurs in the ocean. So in the Mesozoic era, which is more than 65 million years ago, the oceans were uh, they were filled with life forms, and all those life forms were dominated by these top predators that were reptiles. So it could be the Mosasaurus that you're seeing, or it could be the Ichthyosaurus that you have probably heard about through fossils or through movies or through books or whatever. So there were these huge animals that dominated the surface of the ocean. But then again, we all know what happened to reptiles. There was a huge asteroid and it destroyed everything on Earth. And it had its impacts for the following thousands and millions of years in the ocean because it blocked the sunlight and it impacted productivity. And therefore, when all of these things happen, the animals that are top of the food chain, the animals that require a lot of food to survive, are the ones who get hit the most. So eventually, all the reptiles, these large animals that were in the ocean, died, and the ocean was empty. Empty of large animals. There were always fish, small animals that were able to survive. But what the asteroid did was create this space of resource that was available for exploitation. And since most of the reptiles had died, what remained are mammals. And mammals slowly started to take up this space. So when you look at what happened there, when you look at the evolutionary history of whales or dolphins or cetaceans in general, you'll realize that they actually came from a very weird kind of animal, which is called Pachycetus, and you can see the photo. So Pachycetus was categorized as an artiodactyl, which means it was an even-toed ungulate. So you can imagine it as a mixture of a deer and a dog or a wolf. So these were carnivorous animals that had hoofs and they were on land. But as the oceans were empty and there was a lot of fish in it, there was less competition in the ocean. Slowly, some animals, some species started to move into the ocean. And the interesting thing about it is that this change started happening in what is now Pakistan. And this fossil was discovered in Pakistan, and that's why it's called Pachycetus, as you can see here. And there were other species also around that range of 8 to 10 million years that slowly started evolving and adapting in the ocean. And eventually, in a span of about 10 million years, what happens is this species that's adapted to land and hunting and surviving on land slowly turns into an animal that's adapted to the oceans, that's made for the oceans. And of course, there are a lot of species that came and then went away. And what we see now is the diversity of marine mammals in the oceans is only a fraction of what was there. So zooming out, when you look into all the species that are there right now, you can see a representation of them in this tree, in this diagram, which we call as a phylogenetic tree. And it's nothing but a relationship tree that shows you how different species are connected to each other. We have about 100, I think 105 or 106 odd species of cetaceans in the world. And when I say cetaceans, I exclude ciliarians and other species like dugongs and sea cows and seals, etc. I'm only talking about dolphins and whales. Dolphins and whales are also a huge class, like they have 110 species or something. And there are quite a few things to note here. One is at one spectrum of this classification are these whales, which are also known as rorquals or baleen whales or mysticity, because they have these huge balloons underneath their jaw, and they use that to filter out food from the water. So they open their mouths, they filter out, they take in whatever water they can, filter out the water, and eat whatever is remaining, which is usually a mixture of fish, krill, and other small crustaceans. And at the other end of the spectrum is the typical dolphins that we know of, the bottlenose dolphin that you must have seen on TV or on YouTube videos, or that are kept in captivity for different tricks and so on. And but in the middle of that is a whole spectra that is somewhere between a dolphin and a whale. So in our mind, we have either dolphins and or whales, but there are other things. Like for example, you have the porpoise, which I don't think is seen here. Yeah, it's here. The dark porpoise. It's a much smaller kind of dolphin. But you have something called the beaked whales, like the Ziphidae, which are much larger than dolphins, but they are also not the same as baleen whales. So I'll talk about all this diversity in the context of India in the coming few slides. But the one thing to note from this phylogenetic tree is when you look at all the branches, the length of all these branches in this tree, you'll see that there's one which is longest, much longer compared to others, right? And this is the Ganges River dolphin. So what this means is that the Ganges River dolphin, which is there in our backyard, our river, is a very old species. It is a species much older than the other dolphins, and that is also evident when you try to look into the species itself. So it looks like an archaic prehistoric creature. It has a very stout body, a long snout, and it has these very tiny holes for eyes. So having evolved in the Himalayan rivers, which if you have been there or if you have been to any river, you'll recognize that it's filled with muddy water, right? So even if you have eyes, there's no point of having eyes because you can't see underneath. So instead of these elaborate eyes that we have, these animals evolved or regressed those eyes into these tiny pinhole-like cameras, pinhole camera-like structures, where they can only distinguish between light and dark. And these animals, when you think of them, they have been around for millennia. This is much before, and they have been around the civilizations that we have heard and read about. For example, the Indus Valley civilization, the Harappa, Mohenjo-daro civilizations, or the large kings like Ashoka and other dynasties that you might have heard of. All these things came and went, and these dolphins were there. These are prehistoric creatures that way. Right now, the Ganges River dolphin was split into two different species about 3 years ago. Now we have the Ganges River dolphin in the Ganga and the Brahmaputra River, and the Indus River dolphin in the Indus River, which is in India and Pakistan. So I started with this because river dolphins are really fascinating creatures. They are very old creatures, and they belong to India, the rivers of South Asia. But there are also many other species that are found in India. We have more than 30 species of cetaceans or marine mammals combined, out of which one is dugong, which you can see here, which is a herbivorous animal that feeds mostly on seagrass. But the remaining 30 species are a mix of whales, dolphins, beaked whales, and so on. Like I was saying in the previous classification tree, on one end you have all these different whales, rorquals or baleen whales, including the blue whale, the sei whale, the humpback whale, which are all found in Indian waters. Then as you start moving away from that spectrum, you have sperm whales, which are also quite large, and they're mostly found in the eastern coast of India. And as you move along the size spectrum, you find these very weird creatures called beaked whales. So these are somewhere between dolphins and whales. They are not whales exactly, but they are called beaked whales because when you look at their face, you'll see that it's almost shaped like a beak. And these are very fascinating creatures because these are deep dwelling species, which means they are not found near the coastline or in areas where there's a lot of human presence, right? So these are species that are known to dive for tens of kilometers at a time for 2 hours, 3 hours continuously. They can hold their breath for so long. And about 4 or 5 of these species are known to be occurring in Indian waters, out of which the Cuvier's beaked whale is the most common one. And then along the size spectrum, if you see, you have killer whales, which again occur mostly in the west coast and near Andaman Islands. You have the short-fin pilot whales, which are also these group-living whales. So most of the times when you heard of strandings of different dolphins and whales, where like 30, 40, 50 animals stranded together, very likely they are going to be these ones. And we have stranded records from Sri Lanka, Kerala, and even places near Sundarban and Calcutta in the past. That's pretty fascinating. And when you look at smaller dolphins, like the bottlenose, the striped dolphins, and so on, 14 to 15 odd species of them. So the point that I'm trying to convey here is that there are a lot of species of marine mammals in India. There are only a few countries in the world that can say we have these many species, right? How do we know about all these species? It's a mix of all the past records that people have uploaded online, or they have written about in natural history notes, or they're published in research papers and so on. And all the data from citizen scientists. So like when people go out and when they see something, they click a photograph, they upload it to a portal, and then someone sees it, someone finds it, and then you create a record of, okay, this is also found in India, right? So this is a diversity of marine mammals. But if there are so many marine mammals in India, where exactly are they and how are they distributed? Are all of them found in the same place, or are there some places where there are more species compared to other? And the most easy way to answer this is go to the website called International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, and you can search for different species and look at the distribution map. So for example, this is the distribution map of rhesus dolphin, which are also quite large, about 5.5 meters, about 4 to 5 meters in length. And they are ubiquitous, which means they are found almost all over the water around India, right? And you can do that for many different species. And I'm telling this because around 3 years ago, what me and a couple of friends did was we had an idea that if we want to look at all the different species that are found in the world, then IUCN is good, but it's also a very, very hectic way to look at things. So if I want to compare one species versus the other, then I cannot do that. I have to open 2 different tabs on my Google Chrome and see how they compare. So what we did was we tried to ease in this process so that anyone can take it up. And we created a website called Where Are My Cetaceans? And you can go to this website using this QR code that you can see here. This website works on the phone, but it works best on your laptop. So what it does is basically you have a map of the entire world where you can see the richness of the darker areas are where there are more species versus less. To the right, you have a panel of the different species of cetaceans that are found in the world. And what you can do is you can hover your mouse on any of the species and it will tell you where it is. So for example, if you hover over the Indo-Pacific finless porpoise, you'll see that it's found all the way from Indonesia to India and to Oman and Iran and so on. And then you can hover in a certain area. For example, if you want to see what is found in Sri Lanka, you can hover your mouse there and it will highlight all the different species that are found there. So that way, it's a very intuitive website, and we created this keeping in mind that anyone should be able to use it. So I'd encourage you later after the talk or whenever you have the time to go visit this website and see all the fascinating diversity that occurs in cetaceans and where they're found in the world. But when you zoom out a little bit, or when you zoom in rather towards India, and you think back of that dolphin map that I showed, the distribution map that I showed you right now, immediately that comes to the mind. So that map said that the particular dolphin, the rhesus dolphin, is found almost everywhere. But that is not really true, right? Because not everything is found everywhere. There are spaces at a finer level. When you zoom in, there will be spaces where there are more species versus less species. So that is what, for one of my PhD chapters, that is what we wanted to do. So what we did was we combined a lot of information that's available in literature and through social media platforms and other things, and use something called species distribution modeling to model the distribution of about 17, 18 species that are found in India. And this is the map that we got. So the yellow here denotes areas of very high species richness. So these are areas where a lot of species are found, and the darker areas are patches where not many species are found. So for example, if you look at here near Visakhapatnam or near Koringa, there is a bright yellow spot, which means almost 17 or 15, 16 species are found there. But if you look at somewhere in the middle of Bay of Bengal, there'll be only few species that are adapted to the deep, like for example, sperm whales or beaked whales that I was talking about. Right? There are very fascinating insights that you can take in from there. The pretty obvious one is at the East Coast. There are many more species in the East Coast compared to the West Coast, right? And they are very close to the coast. And that's interesting because when you look at the bathymetric shelf or the topography of the eastern coast, you'll find that that the coastline extends a little bit and very quickly drops to the continent. You hit the continental shelf, and it drops to very deep waters. So if you go 50 kilometers offshore from Vishakhapatnam, you'll already be at the depth, say around 2 kilometers or more, right? But in the west coast, if you go around 50 kilometers west of Mumbai or something, you'll only be around I don't know, 300 meters depth or something. So the west coast is much shallow compared to the east coast, and that's why you have a lot of diversity in the west coast here. At the same time, you can see a lot of species are found in Sri Lanka also, because these are tropical waters, again very narrow and slopey continental shelf, which leads to this accumulation of a lot of species, right? And this is a huge task to understand where. Of course, I could not do it alone. For this, I had help from the Marine Mammal Research and Conservation Network of India. So this is basically an informal network of people who are working on dolphins and whales throughout the country, who are interested in understanding what's happening and who are willing to contribute any level of information to better understand these species. If you want to know more about the network, you can scan this QR and go to their website. You'll find a list of people who are associated with it, a list of organizations, what kind of work they do, so on and so forth. I cannot go into the details because we don't have a lot of time, but I encourage you to do that. And at the same time, on the website, you'll also find details on the different 30 species that are found in India. How do you identify them? What are the conservation status and so on? But at the same time, if you like a more precise, more brief and concise information format, then you can also download this app called the Megafauna app. I think it's available on Play Store. You can scan this QR code again to go to Play Store and download it. And what it has is this concise information on all the 30 species that are found in India. And the good part about this is that you'll find this information in all languages, all coastal languages at least, ranging from Bengali, Telugu, Odia, Marathi, English, Hindi, and so on. So which means that so the main aim of developing this app was to be able to talk to fishermen about these animals and help them what species they are seeing when they're going out to fish, right? So again, this was a collective effort of a lot of different people, part of the Marine Mammal Network and other organizations. So anyways, with this information, what we had is this map of where different species, right? And this is where different species are located. They are found as a species which is high. But at the same time, if you look at where most humans are found in the sea, so if you look at things like fishing pressure, or you look at shipping intensity, you'll find that they are also very closely related to where the dolphins are found, right? In fact, when you overlap, you see that there's a huge overlap in where these areas occur. So the areas of very high human presence and the areas of very high species richness or species diversity are the same. So the East Coast, for example, we have a lot of dolphins occurring. There's also a lot of shipping traffic, a lot of fishing vessels, and so on. And similar in the West Coast also. But this data is only from vessels that are registered, and they constantly provide the GPS location when they're outside in sea. And that's by some estimates, that's only 10% of all the fishing pressure that there is. So the actual fishing pressure that there is in the country is quite a lot by a huge margin, and that is something to think about cetaceans and their overlap, right? So you have these areas where you have a lot of different dolphins and whales, and you have these areas, the same areas which are also used by people for fishing, for shipping, for tourism, and for other things, and that creates an overlap between species and humans. And these overlaps don't always have good consequences for both the people and the dolphins. So one very common thing about dolphin and fisheries overlap is that the dolphins very likely try to interact with fishing nets. So fishing nets catch fish, and the dolphins are after these fish. So they go and they try to snatch fish away from the net, and in the process, they tear the net, so which is damaging and not profitable for the fishers. But at the same time, the dolphins also have a chance of getting entangled in these nets. And like I said in the beginning of the talk, these are mammals, so they need to surface so they need to come up to the surface to be able to breathe. But when they are entangled in net underwater, they are not able to do that, and then they die. So bycatch. But at the same time, if that doesn't happen, when they are taking fish from the net, they are also eating plastic, which is getting stuck in the stomach, and there are a whole lot of other things that are happening to dolphins, right? But the same things or similar things are also happening to whales. in different parts of the country. I don't know if this slide is if this animation is showing. Uh, is the animation showing? I don't think so. No.
No, sir, not showing.
Okay, that's really sad because this is a very good animation that shows a blue whale and that's moving in this waters. This is not from India, of course. We don't have that kind of research going on here. But there's a blue whale that's moving in these waters and a lot of different shipping vessels in the same region as well. I'm sorry this animation is not playing for some reason, but you can always Google blue whale shipping traffic animation or video, and you'll be able to find this on YouTube or somewhere. And what you'll see is there's a blue whale that's moving around here and there, and its movement is restricted by the shipping vessels. Because even if the vessel is somewhere here, the blue whale is here, it's constantly irritated by the noise that the vessel is making. So when the vessel is passing through different lines, those lines become a barrier for whales to move around, because whales can listen to sounds that are coming from thousands, tens and hundreds of kilometers away sometimes. So when these vessels are moving, they're like a sound barrier and a stress barrier, maybe to some extent, because of which the whales are not able to freely move around and they are restricted to an area. And a lot of the times, what happens is this does not have good consequences for the whales themselves. So again, this is an image not from India. We don't know what's happening in India, but ship strikes are a major reason for deaths of whales or mortality of whales throughout the world. And definitely some things are happening in India also, but we don't have enough information to tell what's happening. So if all of this is happening and there are dolphins dying, the question that I asked for my PhD is, what is the extent of this mortality or bycatch that the dolphins are facing, and what are the different types of factors that govern this? So what are the environmental and fishery related variables that govern these patterns of bycatch and mortality? Why are dolphins dying more somewhere than the other, or in some seasons than the other? So that is the central focus of my thesis. And now we are moving to the second half of the presentation, where I said I'll talk more about my own work. And mind you, I am still doing my PhD, so I don't have a lot of interesting results to show. But the methods that I use are very interesting. So I hope you find them fascinating. So when you want to understand mortality and bycatch of dolphins, there are already a lot of different methods that people have employed to understand this all throughout the world. So one is onboard surveys, where different people are employed to go fishing with with fishermen on the vessels, and whenever there's a bycatch event, they record it independently. And when you do this for multiple ships or multiple vessels, you are able to estimate a rough rate of how many animals are dying naturally versus unnaturally. If that is not possible, then a lot of vessels are also recorded with CCTV cameras. So whenever something is caught, you can see it in the camera, and then from there you can record how frequently something is being caught or something is dying and so on. If that is not there and you don't have a lot of money, then what people generally do is they do interviews. So they go and talk to a lot of different fishermen. They ask questions about how frequently animals are dying, or what type of gears are animals more susceptible to, and so on. And at the same time, if you have a good network in a certain area, then fishers are also very open, or fishermen are also very open to talking about these things. So if a certain event happens, then they'll actually phone you and tell you that this has happened, or so I just wanted to let you know, or something like that. But there are certain flaws with these methods, just like with any other method, which is when you fishermen about bycatch, and if you're talking to someone about something dying in their fishing gear or in their fishing vessel, which is definitely not their fault, but it would not be taken very positively by anyone. Right? Fishermen are not always very happy to honestly talk about what is happening out at the sea, especially if you are meeting them for the first time and they don't trust you and you don't trust them. So the type of data that you get from here is quite biased. So in my PhD, I tried to ask if there are any other methods that we can use to understand mortality and bycatch, and that made me think about a lot of different things. And I started thinking from a point of the coast itself. So if you have gone to the coast anywhere in the country and you have seen a dead dolphin that was stranded, you'll see something like this, right? So what I got thinking is, where did this dolphin come from, right? And that made me think about this framework of establishing the location of the dolphin. So imagine this imagine what would happen to a carcass or what would happen to a dolphin when it dies at sea, right? So think of a dolphin, think of any dolphin that you like, and it has died at sea because of some reason. It could be because it was caught in a net and it drowned. It could be because it was hit by a fishing boat propeller. It could be because of natural causes or whatever be it, and it died there. So once a dolphin dies, it can either sink underwater depending on its body weight. So if it's not in a very healthy condition, if it does not have a lot of weight, a lot of fat to support its body, then it'll probably sink into the water. Or if it does not sink, it will float, right? And if it is floating, then it will be carried by the waves. And if it's carried by the waves, it can be carried somewhere to the shore where it will breach, and you'll see something like this. Or it will just be carried away from the shore where you might not be able to see the dolphin. Okay, so some dolphins that die are actually come to the shore and they are reported. So other dolphins might not be reported like that, right? So that made me thinking if we can do something with understanding the ocean currents in a certain region to understand mortality of dolphins itself. And there are people who use these models called the part model in the ocean circulation modeling. And what it does is exactly that. So I'll quickly talk about it. So basically what you do is when you look at a carcass anywhere, say for example, on the carcass in Kerala on the 30th of March in 2024, right? When you look at the carcass, you can approximate how long ago it died, depending on by looking at its body condition. So how much bloated it is, what is the condition of the skin, what is the condition of the internal organs and all that. And you can see all that and you can approximate how long ago that animal died, be it 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. And then you can use that information to plot where all these dolphins are or were found in different dates. So for example, if all these different dots are different dolphins, and you know when exactly they died and how long ago they died, you can use information on the ocean currents that are there, and you can use that use the particle tracking models to reverse trace where these animals might have come from. So the blue that was here actually probably came from somewhere here. So and then when you do that for a lot of different dolphins, you start seeing patterns. You can look at the distance to shore, how far away most animals are dying, at what depth most animals are dying, what are the properties of the areas where most animals are dying. For example, is there more fishing intensity in that region and so on. And you build different types of models that can help you better understand what are the factors that correlate to the intensity of dolphin mortality, right? So this was a very new kind of approach which we wanted to test, and we did that in Goa. Goa, as everyone knows, it's a small state of about 100-kilometer coastline in the central west coast of India. It's a very beautiful place, a very tourist-oriented place where a lot of people like to go. But the good thing about Goa is there are a lot of researchers, a lot of people who are concerned about and environment in general, and there are these organizations that collect data on stranded dolphins, which includes Drishti, Terra Conscious, MMI Network, the Forest Department, and so on. And there's also a network of enthusiastic people who share this information on Instagram, WhatsApp, and so on, right? So we collected all this information and we implemented the set of methods that I just showed you to see how many dolphins are dying, where they are dying, when they are dying, and so on. And these are roughly what we found. So the analysis of these things, of this data is still ongoing. So these are not the final results, but I still wanted to show exciting from the methods that came out. So which is why I've put here. This map shows you where all the dolphins, standard dolphins were recorded. And as you can see, they were recorded from almost all throughout the coast, right? And we have 280 records in 5 years. And most of them belong to humpback dolphins, followed by finless porpoise, which are also the two most common species that are found there, right? But when we did our analysis and we tried to trace them back and we tried to see how ocean currents are impacting how many animals are dying and where they're dying, we found something very interesting. So if you look at this graph, the red line that you see here is the probability of stranding. What that means is if an animal has died in the ocean somewhere around here in Goa, what is the probability that it will be carried by the waves to the coast and strand there, right? So and the probability, as you see on the x-axis, is the month from January to December. Low in the winter months, but it increases drastically in the summer and the monsoon seasons, right? And the blue is the total number of carcasses found, dolphin carcasses found in each month in the 5 years. And as you can see, it very beautifully fits the stranding probability line. So what that means is two things. One, we see a lot of different carcasses small dolphins, large dolphins, humpback dolphins in the monsoon season and the pre-monsoon season, right? But a lot of that number is explained by the properties of the ocean current itself. So the ocean currents during the monsoon are such that they are pushing everything towards the coast, which is why we are seeing a lot of these dolphins um, coming up more in the monsoon season compared to other seasons. So that's good in a way, and also bad. Good because we are sure now, or we can be more confident that there are no more dolphins are not dying in the monsoon. But sad in the sense that we can almost assume that an equal number, or maybe slightly less number of dolphins are also dying in the other seasons, which we don't know about, right? So these 281 records are actually much more. From our estimates, they might be around 350, maybe even 400 dolphins or dolphins and porpoises dying every year in Goa. Uh, Sorry, in the past 5 years in Goa, and all those things that will come up later on when we continue our analysis and so on, right? Now, so we understand this pattern of more mortalities in the pre-monsoon or the summer season compared to the winter season, right? So what I wanted to do was try to understand what's happening to these dolphins in these two different seasons that's affecting these patterns. So for that, the best way is to see what the dolphins are doing in the ocean, right? Um, so before that, again, we did this study not through the entire coast of Goa, but in 3 points where we know there's a congregation of dolphins. These are bays where a lot of large rivers come and exit into the sea, and which means they're very productive habitats, and therefore they're attractive to dolphins. So you have these huge pods of dolphins that you can see in the photo here that congregate near these bays and estuaries for food and other things. And at the same time, since there's a lot of fish, there are a lot of also fishermen and tourist operators in these regions. So we wanted to understand how all these different dynamics change across seasons, and how do different other factors like the number of fishing vessels, the number of tourist vessels, number of dolphins around, the number of the availability of fish in different seasons can impact how many dolphins are dying by studying what the dolphins are doing there and how they are interacting with fisheries, right? So that's a very obvious thing to do, but it's also a slightly different or a difficult thing to do, because if you have been to the sea and if you've seen dolphins from your boat sometime, you realize that it's very difficult to observe them. They are mostly underwater, and if you see one or two dolphins around, it's very likely that there are many more which you are not able to see because they are under the water. So that is where technology and other methods come in. So if you have a drone, for example, if you have an aerial perspective, you can see exactly how many dolphins are there, what they are doing, and you can see what other things are happening and how they are reacting to say fishing gears, to tourist vessels, and whether these interactions are turning out to be negative or positive in some sense for the dolphins and so on. And to do this, what we did was we got a small drone, we got all the licenses, permits, etc., and we found these vantage points along the 3 sites that we had. These are basically hillocks where you can go and you have a very wide panoramic view of the sea. And whenever we see dolphins or fishing vessels, we used to fly this drone, and we used to follow the dolphin pod using this drone. So this is the path of the drone. As you can see, it was following the dolphins. The dolphins are moving around here and there. We got videos and footages of the dolphin and so on. And these are just a few photos that are from my work there. And as you can see, it's a very nice, it gives you a very nice and clear perspective of what's happening. You have all these different vessels here chasing this small bunch of dolphins, a pod of maybe 4 individuals or something. Here you have a lot of different dolphins playing, running around. Again, a lot of different vessels chasing these dolphins. They're probably trying to circle the pod. And how do these dolphins escape them? How do these dolphins manage to survive when all these different things are happening? And at the same time, there are also fishing vessels that are around, and the dolphins go and interact with them. So uh, the question that we wanted to ask could be answered using the drone data or the video footages that we have. But as easy it is to fly a drone in Goa or anywhere else to understand dolphins, it is as difficult to analyze that data and get meaningful numbers out of it so that you can detect any statistical pattern that might exist. So while we have collected all the data, we are in the process of analyzing all of it by developing these machine learning and AI tools that can help automatically track dolphins. So if you can see the screen here, this is these are all the dolphins that are being detected and tracked in the green boxes here. The drone is moving, it's flying at a height of maybe like 100 meters. But the point that I'm trying to convey here is automating this process of detecting dolphins um, and measuring variables like how fast they're moving, what direction they're moving. It's a very complicated task that we're working on right now. It cannot be done manually because imagine going through this footage and counting all the different dolphins that are there, and then doing that for uh, 400 different videos and also recording other different types of variables. People would go mad. That is why we need to use machine learning and AI tools, which is what I'm doing. So unfortunately, since I've just begun analyzing this data, I don't have any good results to show you, but hopefully in the next coming years, there'll be some interesting information out, both about dolphins, about fisheries, about the tools that we can use to study them. But I don't want to end by saying that I don't have anything to show you. So here's a picture of a southern right whale being photographed by a diver. I don't remember where exactly. I should have Googled that before I started my presentation. But what I want to leave everyone with a thought here. So there's a very serene picture when I look at it. It's a photographer. It's a diver photographing a whale. Whale looking back at a photographer. What is this animal thinking? What is going on in its head? What do they perceive humans as? And we know from several interactions that they are not very aggressive. So what is going on in their head? How do they perceive us? How do they perceive the environment? How do they think of the world? How do they live in societies? There are so many questions that are surrounding us, and these are questions that can be answered in India because there's a diversity of species in India occurring, but there's so little information that we have on them. There are only a handful of researchers who are working in very small parts of the country trying to understand different things about different species. So what we need is a larger team of enthusiasts, of people, of researchers, of even common citizen scientists who are interested in understanding the cetacean diversity that exists in our seas. And I'd like to end with that note. I hope my presentation was clear and people were able to understand everything. I took more than half an hour, I think, but I'm happy to take any questions and talk to anyone about any thought that you might have about cetaceans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Imran Samad. It was indeed a very great session. You have shared almost all the knowledge regarding cetaceans. So thank you very much. Now the session is open for discussion. So I request the participants, if you have any doubt, you can ask to the speaker. And one request is that, so the link for filling the certificate form will be provided in the chat box after the discussion session. So please wait and fill the form, certificate form needed. So now you are free to talk to the speaker.
Hello, sir. Can you share the PDF, sir?
Hello.
Sir, is it possible?
I can hear you, but your voice is a little muffled.
Hello. Sir, I want that PDF, sir. Can I get that PDF?
Can you start the presentation?
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
Yeah, you're saying you're asking about the PDF, I think, right? So the presentation contains a lot of unpublished results, so I will not be able to share it as it is, but I can remove those and I can share the PDF with Dhananjay, and he will probably be able to share it with everyone.
Okay, sir.
So, okay.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah.
You showed a map showing the population density of the species, and most of the population was concentrated near the shoreline instead of like deeper seas. Is there a specific reason for that?
Wait, I'll just quickly open that map first. You mean this one, right?
Yeah, where it was like yeah, this map.
Yeah. So there are two ways to think about this. One is that since there are a lot of people near the coastline, you'll have much more data from near the coastline. And therefore, you'll have this map where you'll see a lot of different species occurring near the coastline compared to faraway regions, right? But you cannot, of course, you cannot solve that entirely. But what we did is we use a lot of different analytical techniques and tools to minimize that bias to as much extent as possible. And therefore, we can confidently say that the patterns that you're seeing here are actually because of are actually because of what's happening or what's there in the ocean, and not because of the data bias. So that resolves the first point. The second point is that you'll see a lot of different species very close to the coast, which is a very interesting and non-intuitive way to think about things, because when we think of these large animals like whales and diving species like dolphins, etc., we think that these animals live in the ocean somewhere, right? But a lot of the ocean is a desert. So in desert you don't have resources to eat, right? So you don't have a lot of fish, you don't have a lot of other resources that the animals can capitalize on. All these fish resources are actually concentrated near the coast, because you have upwellings and you have these cycles of productivity that boost up fish populations, and therefore attracts different species of whales and dolphins. So, for example, there's this whale species called the Bluedees whale, which is almost as the or a little shorter than the blue whale, but it's a very large species. But what we found out is mostly concentrated in the west coast, very close to the coastline itself. And that's a result not for us also, but even in other regions when people have studied blue whales, they found that they occur very close to the coast. So how large an animal is does not correlate to how far away from the coastline it will be found. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you, Imran. Nice session. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in astronomy, we have groups called citizens group and other things, amateur astronomers and all that, who help in analyzing the humongous data which is collected. So I was thinking in between when you said that we need to use AI and all, is it not possible to use people like in this group who are interested and all that?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Like I ended with my presentation with that note that we need a lot of different people who are interested in marine mammals, but not necessarily ecologists and conservationists, but we need people from the data science sector. We need people from the computer science sector, because we want to understand patterns at a scale that cannot be done by a single individual or by traditional statistical techniques that we use, right? So we need to jump that boundary and be able to engage with different kinds of people. That is the reason why I introduced this Marine Mammals of India Conservation Network. If anyone is interested in anything, they can contact me, or they can reach out to anyone of the people that are there in this network, and we can figure out some way of collaborating if you are interested, some way of doing something about dolphins, maybe doing a study, something as big as doing a study, something as small as setting up a small network where you can report sightings and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Imran.
Yes, please.
Shall I ask? Yeah, my name is Kiran. How many species of freshwater dolphin present in India, and which are the rivers?
How many species of what dolphins you said?
Freshwater river dolphins
Okay.
in India.
Yeah.
And which are the rivers? Yeah.
Yeah, we have two now. One is the Ganges River dolphin, which is found in Ganga and the Brahmaputra, and one is the Indus River dolphin, which is mostly found in Indus River in Pakistan. But there's a small population of about 8 to 10 animals, I think, in the Punjab region of Indus. What was the second question? Sorry, I missed that.
What are the rivers? Actually, one more thing. The hunting dolphin, it was a ritual in Japan. Still, it is going on. There was a movie, right? The famous movie of the cow.
Yeah, yeah.
That ritual is still there, in mass
Yeah.
killing of.
True. I have seen that movie, and I think that mass slaughtering of dolphins still goes on. But that's also that is complicated to talk about, because it's driven by culture, power dynamics, the history of Japan, and so on. But it's a practice that happens in Japan and in I think parts of some country near Norway. I don't remember exactly, but there are certain regions where that happens. And the other part was about river dolphins in Southeast Asia, you said?
That's it. That is. You answered all the questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
So my question is that how does the population size of a particular marine mammal species vary over time in specific regions?
That's very interesting, because generally, if you have a species, they are mostly of the same size. For example, if you look at humpback dolphins, which are the most common coastal dolphins of India, you'll find mostly they range between 2.5 to maybe 3 meters at max. Now we have two different species in the west and the east coast, and maybe they vary slightly differently in their lengths, but we don't really know as of now. But if you look at certain regions where the populations don't really interact with others, you'll find that these species have become slightly different. So, for example, there are bottlenose dolphins in parts of Brazil that
Okay.
are not connected to the main population outside. So those
Okay.
dolphins are slightly smaller. They also tend to interact more with fishermen and fishing nets compared to other dolphins that are much shy. So to answer your question, mostly the maximum size that certain species can go to are fixed, but vary depending from region to region.
Okay. I have another question.
Yeah.
My another question is, what are the factors that influence the population dynamics?
Uh, So any population is affected by two things. One is a bottom-up process of how much resource is available for the dolphin, how much food is there. The more the food, the more the population will grow and reach a particular carrying capacity, as we call it. And the other is a top-down process, which trims the population from top. If you have a lot of fishing pressure, for example, have a lot of mobility from different areas, then that will reduce the population again. So these are two forces that balance against one another to dictate how many animals might be possible occurring in a certain region. There's no universal answer to this. You need to actually go and estimate the size of population in different areas to understand this. But that's how you do it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Sir, what are the threats to like dolphins? Because due to water pollution and global warming, what are the threats to dolphins?
There are so many threats to dolphin. I cannot begin to talk about them. But yeah, pollution is a very big thing because if you have heard about something called bioaccumulation, you'll know what I'm talking about. So all the toxins and all the waste that we dump into water, they are taken up by small shrimps and small fish, which are eaten by larger fish, which are eaten by again larger fish, which are eaten by dolphins. And in this process where one thing eats another, all the toxins that are there start accumulating in your body. So you have not just in India, but all over the world, you have these huge orcas or killer whales. You have pilot whales. You have other kinds of dolphins where this insane concentration of these toxins are found, and they are impacting the reproductive cycles and the physiology of the animals. So there's a very sad video on short-finned pilot whales from somewhere, I don't know. You're probably able to Google it, find out, where you'll see a calf of a whale died because it fed on the milk of its mother, which was so high in concentration in toxins that the calf could not survive it. Right. So that's the one story we know of. There must be so many others that we are not that we don't know about or we are not talking about. Pollution is of course one of them. The other is because of climate change, the seas are warming and the ranges of larger species that migrate across poles, like say the Arctic and the Antarctic, are changing. How they use energy, how much we are fishing out so many fish from the ocean. So the total amount of food that is available to the dolphins and whales are changing. And there's so much noise from different fishing vessels. There's so much probably so high chances of vessel strikes and so on. So those are a few threats to summarize, but definitely there are many more which I'd love to talk to sometime later.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Sir,
Yes, please.
Sir, if I'm interested in research, how do I means what is the roadmap or path to follow
Roadmap to follow for what? Sorry.
for this research?
So it depends. There are a bunch of organizations who are working on marine mammals in India now. You have WCS, you have WWF, you have parts of um, the Habitat Trust, and these different organizations that are trying to understand dolphins and also trying to conserve them in different parts of the world. Then you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have these students like me who are affiliated with different universities who are studying these different animals, trying to understand different parts of their behavior, their ecology, and so on. And if you would like to be enrolled in in one of these things, or would like to work with people, what I'd suggest is that you can directly email them. If you want, you can email me also. You can email other people who are interested. I can get you in touch with others, depending on what are the things that interest you, where you are based, and so on. And we can take it up from there.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
hello, sir. Am I
Good evening.
audible?
Yes, you are.
Sir, actually, I wanted to ask, there is a fact that dolphins can communicate with pregnant ladies and communicate with the babies. Is it true? And what is the mechanism if it is true?
Yeah, I think I have seen that video that of that article that you're talking about. So we don't know if dolphins can communicate with babies or with fetuses because we don't know what dolphins are thinking, what dolphins are. We cannot talk to dolphins, right? But how dolphins generally communicate is by using something called sonar. So sonar imaging is something that uses sound to build images of what's inside somewhere. So if you have done sonography or if you have seen sonography, it's a technique used on pregnant women to sort of build an image of the fetus and see if the fetus is healthy or the child is healthy or not. And then the dolphins also use a very similar technique where they use a very high frequency sound waves they just throw those sound waves into the womb or the area or the fetus, and then when they reflect back, they are able to understand that there is something inside it's that moving, something inside that's alive, right? But we don't know what the dolphins think about that. Certainly, they can perceive it, and there are videos where there are dolphins reacting to these kinds of things. But I don't know. I don't think anyone knows what the dolphins really think about this.
Sir, I had another question.
Hello, sir.
That is the whale vomit is sold for trillions of dollars. What
Yes.
is the reason, sir?
Hello,
What
sir.
is the reason for it?
Yes, yes. Whale vomit is very, very expensive because it's used in the fashion industry. If you come across whale vomit, if you smell it, it smells really, really nice. And that is why it's used to make perfumes and other things in the fashion capitals of the world, like Italy and so on. And this led to this increased inflated price. There's nothing very special about it. It's just vomit. Like, we need to puke sometimes. But the vomit is special because of all the mucus and all the different things that the whale secretes inside its stomach to digest it, which combined with the fish or with the krill that they have, or with the shrimps that they have eaten, makes this very nice smelling perfume that can be harnessed from it, which makes it very expensive.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Hello.
Sir, is it actually true that dolphins are more intelligent than humans?
I think many animals are more intelligent than humans.
Yes.
You can look at the world around, what the humans are doing to the world, and how they are shaping different things. But in very technical and ecological and neurobiological senses, it's very difficult to define what is intelligence, right? Like there's a famous quote, I think, by Einstein or someone, that if you judge a fish by its by its ability to climb a tree, then you'll always say that the fish is stupid. But is the fish really stupid? How do we measure intelligence in different species? What does it mean to be smart and to be able to survive in your environment? So I don't think I can answer if humans are more intelligent than dolphins, but certainly there are many instances, there are many studies that tell you that dolphins are able to, in the more technical sense, solve a lot of problems that tell you about that are reflective of intelligence. So, for example, there's this thing called the mirror experiment, where people just put a mirror in the water and see if animals can recognize themselves. It's a test of self-recognition. So, if you are able to understand that I am something, I exist, and I see the thing that I see in the mirror is me, then that's an indication of being self-aware and therefore being intelligent, let's say, to some extent. And there are other tests like dolphin used to see analytical abilities, like puzzles. So, for example, if you Google, you'll find a lot of videos on YouTube where the dolphins have know that there is a fish on one side of the tank, and they need to somehow chase the fish on the other side of the tank through a maze, and then from the other side they'll be able to get it. And many are able to do that. So that's probably a sign of intelligence. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say.
Okay, I think the session has come to an end. Thank you so much, Mr. Imran Samad, for your valuable interaction with the other participants. So if you have any further doubts regarding the topic, you can mail for the email ID provided in the chat box or in the WhatsApp group. So the speaker will clarify. And it was indeed a great session. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed really this session. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.